So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Clive Davies from Pictorex. I think many of you have seen me before and know me. So I'm going to be talking about ARTISAN for IntelliCAD. My company's Pictorex. We developed ARTISAN a few years ago, and I'll show you a few of the features and what we're doing with IntelliCAD specifically. So it's an add-on rendering product, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. The fact that there are many rendering products around, of course. We're an add-on product only. We created it. We're in the UK, in Sheffield in the UK. And it uses the rendering engine from a company called Lightworks in Sheffield, which many of you will know, or have heard of anyway. It's relevant, I think, now because Siemens bought this company this year. So we now have an agreement with Siemens, which has opened up, I won't go into the detail, but it opens up a number of opportunities which we can now explore with our customers, and specifically with IntelliCAD. And I'll talk about that reason in a moment. Fundamental to the difference between the way we work with IntelliCAD and other systems is that the integration was created by the ITC development team. So we have a connection with CAD systems. Some we created ourselves, and some the CAD company created. The ones that the CAD company created usually turn out to be the best because it means we call on more resources and we can pursue some different opportunities. And you'll see that in a moment. So these are some stock pictures. I'm not just going to show you lots of pretty pictures. I'm going to show you how to generate some of these. But it is used in a variety of different CAD systems, which is why it's particularly applicable for IntelliCAD, I think, from mechanical parts, interior, exterior design, architectural, and automotive, if you wish. These are all DWG files that were loaded. Not all DWG, sorry, they were from the CAD system. That one is actually a DWG and have rendered in ARTISAN. So it produces nice images. That's fundamentally what it does. It differs from other systems, and I think the important point, the way I tend to talk to audiences, is the difference between other systems. There's lots of things that create nice images. There's all sorts of systems you can buy. We benefit from the close integration with IntelliCAD. And also, we have advanced rendering technology that we take from Siemens, but we make it easy to use. Typically, rendering systems aren't easy to use. You have to learn some special tips and tricks. It can take a while to produce the image. You can be going through a rendering cycle trying to get exactly what you want. We've targeted ARTISAN at the person who doesn't really want to become an expert, who wants something that's easy to use. So it's all drag and drop, and I'll demonstrate some of those for you in a moment. Very little typing involved. You can drag and drop materials and light schemes and so on. We've translated the interface into 10 languages, and the 10 languages we've picked, and you'll see them in a moment, are really as a result of people asking for them. I think the first few we probably did anyway. We did sort of French and Spanish and German, but then others have come along and people have said, can we have it in this language? And we've translated it. The whole of the system that's exposed to the customer, i.e. the customer being the CAD company, and also the end user, is an XML-based system. So this is all exposed, and people can basically create their own language if they want to, or come to us and we'll create another one. And the distribution network is different in many cases, and I'll talk about those in a second, but it differs in the ITC terms, and it's distributed by the members. Okay, so we don't distribute to end users. We never sell to end users. Pictorex only sells to CAD companies. And in this case, the ITC being different from any of our other customers, they distribute. So it's a plug-in to IntelliCAD, and I'll show you that working in a moment. The advantage of it being a plug-in is there's no need to save the file and transfer. As I said, there's any number of CAD systems, rendering systems you can buy where you have to save the file, load it into your CAD system, create a rendered image. You don't do that with ARTISAN. You simply plug into IntelliCAD, so you don't need to save the file. And here it is running in ProCAD here, one of the members that's using it. So there's the menu, and up comes the ARTISAN window. Okay, so we move from IntelliCAD to ARTISAN window with a simple click. A little word about some of our other systems. I know you're not particularly interested in this. In fact, it runs with the systems. And we tend not to show this at specific customers' events, but it sort of shows the strength of ARTISAN. we plug into any number of other systems, and some of these are older versions. Aries in particular, I think, over on the right here, and ZWCAD, we're still in an older version of ZWCAD, but these are the systems we've connected to. And you can see here IntelliCAD is a bigger box than all the others because there are many companies in it. And there are currently 4 companies within the IntelliCAD special interest group, as we've called it. These are people who have signed up and take Artisan as part of their IntelliCAD build. And they're ActCAD, CMS, Microsurvey, and ProjectCAD. And these question marks are to be filled in for the next conference. So it's easy to use. You don't have to become a rendering expert. You can get from this to this in a couple of minutes. I almost said seconds, that's probably a bit too much. A couple of minutes, and I'll show you how that works in a moment. And I think many of you have seen this. I think people who were at Prague last year will have seen that demonstration. I'm sorry to bore you there, but I'm going to show you some slightly different things this time. So that's a building. You can drag and drop materials. So here's a lot of the menus, which you'll see in a moment. We supply these materials, or you can create your own, or the end user can create their own. Typically, end users create their own here. We don't have any CAD companies, I don't think, maybe Proj, I'm not sure now, actually supplying their own materials to people. There are a couple of resellers doing it, but you can actually generate these from procedural materials or texture-based materials. Not trivial. No one pretends it's trivial to create materials. You know, you can't simply take a photograph of a brick wall and hey presto, you've got a brick wall you can use. You know, it takes some skill to make it look good. The language translations, so German, Italian, French, Spanish, Russian, Polish, Japanese, Korean, Chinese, Portuguese are the ones we've done. And as I said, we can do any other language we want to fairly quickly. We use a translation company to do that, who have native speaking translators. And we can do that very quickly. We turn around in probably 2 or 3 days, we can produce a new language. So the distribution method, so the ITC have created the bridge, so they own the bridge. Everyone who creates the bridge owns it. We don't own that, we only own Artisan. And they packaged Artisan with the standard release of IntelliCAD. And there's a deal. The unique deal is that to join this special interest group, there's an annual fee of $5,000 and no further royalties to pay, so you just distribute as you want. You can sell it, or you can give it away, or whatever you want to. It's just similar, I suppose, to the way the IntelliCAD system works. It isn't the same system with all other customers, by the way. I mean, some people are paying an end-user fee, some people are paying different end-user fees as a similar but slightly different system with many other people. And we have a trial version we can put out with the watermark if people want to. Well, it's not so relevant, I don't think, in the IntelliCAD case, but we can render with a trial version if you're actually waiting for someone to pay before they get the license. New developments. This is my whole slide on new developments, so it's kind of, you know, not spectacular. But I wanted to talk about the closer integration with IntelliCAD, and we've just started to do some work. Dave's been pushing for this for a year or so, maybe more, to start to get this closer integration. The first thing we're doing is a sun locator. So at the moment, and I'll show you how I move the sun in IntelliCAD, in Artisan. It's very simple. I just drag the sun around and position it where I want to. Dave said people would quite like to put the sun in a particular place in the sky, so we're using the sun locator inside IntelliCAD and passing the results of that function into Artisan. And this transfer of information is something we're going to be working on quite a bit, I think. We've exposed a lot of the API in Artisan, which has its sort of own SDK, which you can actually pass information in. Either they can be camera views, they can be light information, and in this case, the sun locator. So the ITC development team are doing the work on the actual sun locator dialog and the data that's, you know, I'm living in Canberra, I'm living in Rio de Janeiro, San Francisco, and it will work out where the sun is, 4 p.m. It won't be 4 a.m. and pass that data in. Network rendering is something we're doing. This isn't a CAD company specific thing. This allows us to transfer the rendering task to other machines on the network. Okay, so if you have a network, it doesn't have to be a big network. You can have a network of 5 machines. You can either choose to do all the rendering on your own machine. So you may have 10 images you've got to create, or you can simply say, I'd like to spread those around the network, please. People have gone for lunch, there's machines sitting idle on the network, and it will do the rendering for you. So we're releasing that soon. And connected slightly to that, but not specifically, is an animation project, which we've had, again, on the, not really the back burner, but doing some work on for a while, where we allow people to create animations of either rendered images or OpenGL images. Typically, the reason I connect that with network rendering is typically it produces a lot of images to render. Okay, so a 20 frames per second movie, you've got 200 rendered images to create. So being able to pass them to even a 2 or 3 machine network is a very valuable function. So, quick demonstration. Well, not necessarily quick. I'll take as long as I want to on this. So this is a building, the Barcelona Pavilion, which we've used a number of times. I think a lot of people have seen it. It's a pavilion that was built in Barcelona for an expo, I think, back in the 30s now. It's a pavilion in there. It's a very nice building, and it's nice to use to demonstrate. So here we have a photograph on the left-hand side, if you can see my mouse moving. On the right-hand side, an artisan image. Okay, it's not. I think they're similar. You know, if I was an architect who wanted this to present this building to a client, the artisan image is very good. It doesn't claim to be photorealistic. It's not going to deceive anyone, but it looks pretty good. And I imagine it looks. I can't quite see what's on the screen there, but it looks pretty good from here. So I use a variety of different systems. I'm not advertising anybody's system in particular. I use the raw IntelliCAD, which is this is part of. I use ProCAD also. I'm using CMS here, which just happens to be CMS IntelliCAD, which has all the functions exposed, so it's nice to use. So this is the building. I can look at it like that, and I can change the model or whatever I want to do. Or using these buttons here, and I know you can see my mouse moving up on the toolbar. I've got the Artisan button there. I guess most of you have seen this button on your system. You either use it or you don't use it if you don't care about it, but there it is. So I'll ask to go into Artisan, and it tells me it's converting the model data and loading Artisan. Now, a pop-up screen has appeared with Artisan in it. It's a modeless dialog. It's a modeless plugin, which means that I'm using the CAD system and the render at the same time, or not at the same time, at any time. This isn't the same with all of our systems. Sometimes it's modal, it kind of locks you out of the CAD system, and this is kind of a real difference with IntelliCAD. Let's make it a bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. And I've got a version of it there. Let's just change the lighting back to something a bit more sensible. So this is the building. So I've now got my controls, which I'm more familiar with using in terms of rotating or walking or zooming or whatever I want to do. And this is an OpenGL view, as you can probably tell. It's got some light on it. It's got a sun. In fact, I can move my sun. You'll see that I can move the sun around in this. And as I said, I can position it anywhere I want. I don't know where that is in the world or what the rotation of the building is, but that's something we're doing with the sun locator. And I can start to play with this building. I can start to play with different aspects of the materials. Across the top of the screen here, you can see the 4 things I can do, and I'll show you each of these very quickly. Materials, first of all, I can change the lighting, I can change the backgrounds, and I can do some with snapshots, which I'll show you in a second. Let's play with some materials first of all. So I can simply pick up a material and drop it on the model, and it becomes brick. Okay, or I can try another one. Okay, and I've got, let's try a dark one. So I can see, in OpenGL, I can see the effect of making that change straight away. It doesn't change the view of the building at all, the speed of rendering and so on. I have many of these, so I have, as you won't be able to read that, but there's car paints, carpets and flooring, colours, concrete and so on. If I just scroll through, you can see some of the materials we have. We probably don't have enough, and as I said last year, I remember saying this, you know, it's never enough for people. People always want more materials, and we have a plan to create more, and we also have told people how to create their own, and they're very simple to create. So that's something which we'll try and push through more and more. I think with a platform system, because so many are using different applications, there's some mechanical, some architectural, some schematic based or whatever, then it's difficult for us to know exactly what materials to create. So let's put a few materials on here. As I said, I've got all of these. This star at the end are ones you create yourself. And I've actually created a little library of materials called Barcelona. Nothing special, I just created these materials. I'm stuck in a library so I could use it in demos. So this is the marble that the building is created using. Let's just drop this in a few places and we'll see it start to build. Put some marble on there. Put some steel on that column. Now you can see that a number of things are changing when I do this. If I just pull out of here again for a second, if I let's drop that on there for a second. So how did it know which ones to create? It hasn't just dropped it on the wall I put it on. I put it on this wall down here. It's actually changed all these. It's based on the layers that these materials are on. So the layers that are used in IntelliCAD, they happen to be on a layer called walls, I think. And lo and behold, it's put everything on that layer. So this one over here, which is, let's drop that on there for a second. Okay, that's got a few pieces of geometry on it as well. And we use layers to connect the two. We're not changing the model at all. The model always stays as it was passed into ARTISAN. All we're doing is creating, if you can imagine, a mapping table between the layers and the materials, so we know what we've put on this building. And if I like that, I can think maybe I'll show my client when he comes in. I can take a snapshot of that, and I can hit this camera icon, and down at the bottom here you'll see a snapshot of that that's appeared. Let's put some of the materials on. Let's try it with the green marble. Okay, let's create a snapshot of that. I've now got two I can show the customer when he comes in. I can create rendered images of these, and I'll show you that in a second, and I can make them look very real and present them. But here I'm just creating snapshots. Now these snapshots, if I put one back in here, and that's the orange one, that's the green one, they're not simply images, they're actually the model at that state. Okay, so everything I did to the model, let's put some more things on here. Let's create some colours. Oh, sorry. Some colours. Let's say we're going to do a more schematic thing. It's kind of nonsense, but if you bear with me for a second. Okay, that's something else I'm going to show. I create a snapshot of that. So each of these, I can create as many of these as I want to. All I've done is saved the table of the materials that go with the layers. Okay, it's a simple thing that's happened in the background, but it's allowed the user to be able to show their customer or the client team, the design team. We often talk about presenting this in front of customers. Quite often it's used in a design team. It's not really meant to be something you'd sell the building for the other part. It's just to show the rest of the members of the team. So let's go back to one that looks a bit better than that for a second. Let's work this one up a bit. Put that material back on there, and that green on there. And I've got an orange wall over there inside, so I'm going to walk in and put some. So this is where we're looking at the animation project for actually sort of moving through a building. As you can see, I'm just steering with my mouse. I want to put that on there. Okay, so I've now got all the materials in place for this building, and it's looking quite good. It's still OpenGL images, but it's looking okay. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people would say, okay, that's good enough. Let's put some lighting on it. I want to see what it looks like on a sunny day. I've effectively put it in a little dome of light. I've taken, this is a three-dimensional photograph taken with a three-dimensional camera, a scanning camera, and there's created a lighting image that I'm lighting that building with. There's the sun in the sky and some green fields and so on. Let me move back in and have a look at this. Now if I render this image now, remember everything we've done so far is OpenGL. If I render the image, it takes a little longer, it's scanning down the screen, and it creates an image of what that building will look like on a sunny day in that photographic location. You don't necessarily want to keep this photographic location, but that's what it's using for its image. I can change the background in a second. So I'm getting rendered views. Let's put some water in the pond and make it look a bit better. Let's put some gravel in the bottom of the pond. Stick some pebbles in the bottom. Put the water back on the top. Bear with me a second. Geometry show all. I've now put some water in the pond, and when it renders, I don't have an image of water. They're quite difficult to do with images of water. So this is just rendering a random collection of water. We provide a few of those to use. So this is looking quite good now. I don't like the background, which is some curious scene near Sheffield, actually. It's near Sheffield. Let's have a nicer background. I've got a whole range of these. I can put on a grey background. The background hasn't changed the lighting because I've supplied the lighting, so I can render it now. And that's the same image, but with a neutral background. And I've got a variety of these. You can probably see what's happening as I'm using this. If I render, you can see a render takes about, it's a simple enough building, but it's taking about 15 seconds or so to create. But each time I do something, I interrupt the render. So I can render and interrupt straight away if I change my mind. Okay, I don't have to wait for it to complete. And again, we've got a whole set of different backgrounds people can use. We've got trees and we've got all sorts of things. So if I let's put up one of these on. Now that's just a photograph of some trees behind. Higher resolution photograph than my simple 3D image. And I can get this in about the right place. Let's change the camera. The camera wants a slightly wider lens, I think. Walk in here a little bit. To about that position. Get it kind of where I want. And a little bit like that. And render it. Okay, it's looking a little bright, but it's a sunny day. And as I said, once we get the sun locator in, you can say where you are in the world for that. Actually, I've got some artificial lighting in there. Let me just... Presentation came a little quicker than I thought. Let's just change that. Lighting. Artificial lighting off. Okay. Render that. That's better. So Barcelona Pavilion, a nice bright sunny day. Save the image and deliver. Of course, I've still got these other snapshots around, so what are these all about? I've still got this one. Still got this one. I've still got these. These are all still there. So I can hide geometry, but I can't change geometry. To change it, I need to be in the CAD system, so I can go back to the CAD system. I'm going to hide a layer, which happens to be called roof. Okay? So I'm making changes. I would do some more sophisticated modeling, but I won't. I'm just changing the model in some way. If I now go back into ARTISAN, I've got to synchronize. ARTISAN's still sitting there thinking the roof is on the building. So I have to synchronize, and thoughtfully we have a button to do that. ARTISAN sync, and it will synchronize the data. And I've now got the model in exactly the state I left it in terms of materials and lighting and background and so on, but now I have the new geometry. And for each of these, it's at that situation. Okay? So I've changed the model and I've updated the ARTISAN scene. Now if I've created a whole set of drawings here, and at the last moment the client says the windows are too small or whatever, and I've pasted them all into the report and so on, I can simply go back into ARTISAN where I've got the drawings stored, and then collect these drawings at the bottom and say re-render all of those for me. And it'll re-render, paste them back into the images for me, back into the reports. Okay. Okay, I've done that very quickly, and there's a little glitch in the middle of it, which made it a bit awkward to see. But that's the intention of it. The intention is to make it very easy to create images, but more importantly, easy to recreate those images once the design changes. So we know in almost any design, it's going to go through many, many iterations. And what we want to do is minimize the amount of extra work that the rendering person has to do, if it is a rendering person or the designer, once those changes are made. In a standalone system where you've got to remember where these changes are made and put the file across, it's more worse than a nightmare. It's impossible, I think. It's not something you can do. Anyone can join the special interest group and start shipping it straight away. Okay, that's it. Super rapid. If there's any questions, thank you.